Yeah, baby. For the first time ever, the weapons inspector and his pal Jeff are in the same time zone while streaming.
Welcome to the evening time slot. It's the vibe's a little bit different at 8 o'clock than it is at 5 o'clock, isn't it?
That's exactly why I mentioned it. It's quite a bit different. I eat
Yeah.
dinner after I do it usually.
But now you have dinner in your stomach and you're lethargic.
No. I might eat a late dinner tonight. I don't know, but it would be quite late. We'll see how it goes. We'll see. I think I prefer 5 o'clock. Does it screw up your dinner? You know, like when you do it at 8 o'clock, or you're just usually done by then, no problem?
It screws up my whole night, but I'm here for you and everybody else, so it doesn't matter. But it's an awkward time. 8 o'clock is an awkward time, but that's okay.
Yeah, it is. It is. I have a whole new take on it now.
You have an whole new feel for it.
Yeah.
Now you might understand why sometimes I might look a little brain dead, because it's like at the end of the day, and depending on what I've done during the day, it's tough to get. Where is Maverick? Maverick's right here. He's trying to be quiet. Yeah. I got in trouble the other day at on George Galloway's show. Everything was going great. Maverick was downstairs. He was quiet. Shh, perfect. Then at the end of the thing, the last question, the person who Maverick hates most in the world walked in the house, came home from work early. And of course, Maverick went off. And I'm just like, that's the end of the interview. There's really nothing more I can do right now. So apologize for that.
All right. Well, we know that it goes smoothly on the Friday night loquacious version. I guess I forgot. I had a new co-host. Remember we decided that because
that's right. I'm fired, but unfortunately, she's a little under the weather tonight, so she's resting. But she promises that the next loquacious version, she'll be more than happy to kick me out of this chair and take over.
All right, we'll give you one more chance to redeem
yourself. Thanks. This is it.
So you've been busy. You just did a new article for Sputnik about Ukraine's growing addiction to foreign mercenaries. Also, a couple of new 2-minute videos produced this week. You can see that on our YouTube channel. France is burning. I noticed you had a very cheeky tweet today about that. You could get in trouble with Twitter for glorifying violence. I know you're not really, but you never know how they'll interpret things. Karma is a bitch, Macron. Ooh, that is so cheeky.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't wish any harm on the French people at all. I really don't. I mean, they have a difficult situation, and it's been a long time coming. Their immigration policies and the post-colonial abuse of immigrants in France all lined up. And then when a cop popped a kid in the head, I know the kid was violated. The kid was trying to get away. That's not a murder charge, and the cop killed him, literally executed him on the spot. And now this country's blowing up. But Macron, what Macron doesn't understand is when he calls for sanctions against Russia, what he's saying is, I want the economic collapse of Russia, because that was the goal of sanctions, to bring about the economic collapse that would then generate domestic unrest like this, that would generate the downfall of the Putin administration. That's what Macron wanted. That's what all of Europe wanted. So guess what, Macron? Enjoy the moment, because this is what you were hoping happened to Moscow. Karma is a bitch.
But he did enjoy the Elton John concert, so probably.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, just not a good look.
That's worse than when Ted Cruz went to Mexico when there was whatever.
It's up there. I mean, Ted Cruz going to Mexico was pretty bad too.
Even though the United States Senate doesn't really deal with stuff like that, but it does.
No, but his whole thing about hanging tough, suck it up, America, get it up, and then he goes. So.
All right. Well, let's get to the questions from our beloved audience. As I mentioned, this is the loquacious version. Friday nights, we take our time. Scott gives very extensive answers. Usually we hang in there for a couple of hours, as compared to Tuesdays, which is the lightning round, 1-hour show. Every question is answered in 3 minutes or less. And our first question tonight comes from John C. in Austria. Russia deploys thousands of landmines in its defensive positions. Are some of these landmines deployed by artillery? If so, are they not visible to the enemy?
Well, some of these landmines are deployed by artillery. It's very clever the way the Russians do it. For instance, if as the Ukrainians clear a breach, create a zone to advance, they clear the mines out. The Russians will fire artillery behind them, seeding the area behind with landmines. So when the Ukrainians decide that, oh, we can't go anymore, and they try and back out, they run into the landmines. You know, when you're under fire, it's tough to be out there looking for landmines. These landmines are designed to blend. Again, if you're walking very carefully, you should be able to see them. But if you're going through an area that you thought you had swept for mines, and then so you're sort of rushing through, not paying attention. Plus, you're getting shot at. You have artillery coming down on you. These are just wreaking havoc on the Ukrainians. The Russians are very, very effective at their use of landmines to create these barrier belts.
Okay. Our next question comes from Odysseus, one of our regulars in Brussels. I assume that the Ukrainian forces with Western assistance have prepared their own fortifications on their side of the border with what is now, according to Russian law, Russia. Is it correct to think that any Russian advance will have to go through these fortifications and suffer significant losses if and when the Russian army advances westwards in Ukraine?
Well, absolutely. The Ukrainians have been digging in for not just this period, but for 8 years. Why do you think the battles for Soledar, for Severodonetsk, for Bakhmut were so difficult? Because these were fortified positions. The Russians, though, right now are advancing up by Limon and other areas. They're advancing, but it's very slow work. They have to level the Ukrainians with artillery. They have to advance slowly, not to get overextended. The Ukrainians are very skilled, even though they're running out of trained manpower. The trained guys they have left are very good at what they do, and if the Russians give them an opportunity to kill Russians, they will kill Russians. So it's very laborious, bloody, tenacious fighting. And yes, the Ukrainians are dug in, and yes, the Russians are going to have to go and dig them out.
We have a voicemail message from Frank in Chicago.
Hi, Scott. My name is Frank, and I'm calling from Chicago. And I had a question. You had mentioned in a recent interview that in the 90s you had inspected the Iraqi Ministry of Defense office and facilities, as well as their intelligence headquarters in Baghdad. And I was just wondering, because I don't think many Americans or anybody was allowed to go inside those facilities and inspect them, what your impression was of the professionalism of the Iraqi officers or their intelligence services. Were they capable in terms of how they managed and stored documentation? Was it all on paper? Were they using computers? And overall, did their quality of their facility strike you as impressive, or would you say it was more of a third world type of facility? So I was just curious, because I don't think that ever has been discussed before. Thank you.
First of all, the Iraqi officers were extraordinarily well trained in the British model. Highly disciplined, highly professional, very knowledgeable about their respective, military occupation specialties. They believe in staff work. Everything, there's a record for everything. Paperwork was their forte. This is in the early 90s. They did have some computers. When you got into the presidential administration, presidential security, there were computers. We oftentimes were looking for zip drives, where we were told that they had compressed data and were hiding it. But no, extraordinarily professional. And sometimes that was their downfall, because the approach I would take sometimes on inspections was to spend a lot of time debriefing defectors on staffing procedures, how things are documented, where the documents are stored. And so, to give you an example, if we believe that the 3rd Battalion of the Special Republican Guard had used their trucks to transport documents on a given day, I would learn about how you document the trucks, how you sign out the vehicles. If people from outside the battalion came to sign out the vehicles, where they would sign, because that's how Iraq worked. There's a very structured, very professional, organization, the military, and then the Iraqis are thinking I'm going to be looking for the weapons of mass destruction, and I am going a different route. I'm looking for the sign out sheet to find the name of the guy who signed it, and then I'll then go to the personnel office and find the folder with his name on it, and then I'll bring that folder and say I want to interview this guy, and they can't say, well, he doesn't exist. So I mean, it was a lot of fun to do this. It was very difficult, but no, to answer your question, very professional. The Iraqi Ministry of Defense was immaculate. When you go into into an officer's office, the desk was clean, paperwork was organized. The soldiers were disciplined. They were well dressed. Look, the problem with the Iraqis wasn't that they weren't any good. It's just that they were going up against a superpower, and it's very difficult to fight a superpower. Remember, they had finished an 8-year war with Iran. They were exhausted. Then we came and blew them to hell. The sanctions prevented their military from being rebuilt. So in 2003, it was very difficult for them to put up an effective defense, but it wasn't for a lack of trying. They're very brave. I don't think you'll find any soldier or Marine who went into Iraq in 2003 and will say that the Iraqis weren't brave. Extraordinarily brave people. But it's just, courage alone doesn't win the day. And but short answer to your question, both the intelligence services and the Iraqis or the Iraqi Army, the Ministry of Defense, were staffed by extraordinarily well prepared, professional people. They knew their job, and their places of work were well kept and well documented. And as I said, that sometimes turned out to be their downfall, because when you leave a document trail and then you got somebody who is as anal retentive as I am when it comes to investigating, I'm going to find the document.
Were the documents strewn around the bathroom like Trump's place?
Well, there was one time, since you brought it up, they had evacuated buildings that once they realized what I was looking for, and I came into country, what they would do is say, okay, well, his intelligence is probably, it's definitely dated at least a couple of days ago. So what we're going to do is move all the documents right now, and he'll be going to empty places. And so that's what they do. They'd say, throw the document. They just empty the documents into trucks. They'd go in and they'd throw them into rooms and shut the door. So oftentimes I'd be showing up and it's empty. There's nothing there. The documents are gone. But one time we got lucky, and we basically, it was by accident again, as almost every success I had in Iraq was, we made a left turn when we should have made a right turn, and we pulled up to the wrong building. And the Iraqis, their eyes got wide, and I went, whoa, let's just keep going with this one, guys. And we went in, and there were the documents. And I'm talking, when you talk about strewn, they're strewn all over the place, everywhere. And the Iraqis are going, okay, but there's no way he's going to do it. What they didn't know is I had spent the entire time memorizing signatures, classification marks, and keywords. I don't speak a word of Arabic, but I have a pretty good memory. And it's like a photograph. Once you see, the signatures of the people you're looking for, the classification levels, and then office symbols and things like that. So I would just sit there and pick up documents and nope, yep, nope, yep, nope, yep. And the Iraqis are watching me doing this. And finally the guy comes and he goes, Mr. Scott, you told us you would never lie to us. And I said, I will never lie to you. You told us you don't speak Arabic. I said, I don't speak a damn word Arabic. And he says, you're a liar, because you are pulling every important document, every document that has relevance. You're pulling it out. You must read Arabic. And I said, nope, it's my secret. But we went through those documents and we got a whole bunch, and it allowed us to ask questions and force them to give us answers. We didn't find any weapons of mass destruction, but that's okay, because it's an investigation, and by asking questions and getting answers, we're able to, better figure out what we're looking for, what's important, what's not important. So sometimes the Iraqis are their own worst enemies. If they just trusted us to do our job, we could have been out of there quickly. But instead, they forced us to do this, to play this game, thinking that we're out to get them. Now, there were some people out to get them. The CIA was out to get them. British intelligence was out to get them. I wasn't out to get them. I was out to do my job. And if they just let me do my job, we could have been done sooner. But they hid everything from us because they didn't trust us, and then I had to spend a lot of time finding it. And like
You
I said,
have a good memory. I would say that's an understatement. I think you have an amazing memory. The last episode, and I don't know how many times you and I have been out eating and drinking when we're doing events and so forth, but many times. And only one time we met my friend Dan Amarello in the last episode. I mentioned just his name in Worcester, and you immediately remembered who he was. Oh, the pizza oven. I couldn't believe it. That was like 20 years ago.
yeah, but that's because that pizza oven really impressed me. And to show you how utterly worthless I am as a human being, I made a pledge that day that I'm going to build a pizza oven. That I'm going to be the coolest dad in the world. I'm going to build a pizza oven. My kids are going to bring their friends over. We're going to have pizza. And I never built that pizza oven.
Yeah, but I didn't mention the pizza oven. I just mentioned the name.
Right. But I just remember, I remember, I mean, I can't say I remembered the name, but I remembered
Worcester. Oh, that was it.
Yeah.
Worcester.
Yeah.
Okay. Did we go to his house?
Away my secrets. No, Jeff, I remembered the name. I remember.
We didn't go to his house, though. He just told you about it or showed you pictures?
No. We were there at the
At his house?
oven. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I remember eating it.
Physically at the pizza oven.
All right. I thought that we were at a restaurant. Like I said, you have the amazing memory. I don't. Adam from Illinois, can you provide an update on the political situation in Georgia? They have dropped out of the news media world after the situation, trying to pass the foreign agent legislation.
Well, I mean, yeah. What my understanding is that the Georgian government, the prime minister, and the party that he leads, is working very hard to avoid a crisis with Russia. The Georgian president, who isn't Georgian, by the way, I mean, yes, she is, but she's from France, and she takes orders from France. She's trying very hard to get Georgia to lean to the European Union, continue down the NATO track, etc. The Georgian government, it was interesting. The Georgian Airlines, they went ahead. The Russians cleared the way for visa-free travel to Russia, and Georgia Airlines went ahead and resumed flights into Russia. And the Georgian president, instead of saying, "Wow, this is great connectivity," she said, "I'm going to boycott Georgian Airlines. I'm going to sanction them by not flying." And they're like, "We don't care." Look, there's stuff going on behind the scenes. I can't repeat it because I don't know if it's true, and I don't want to be accused of spreading rumors, and B, if it's true, maybe they don't want it. No, the Georgians right now have a difficult internal situation where they're literally they're wrestling each other over whether or not to continue down this path of joining the EU, of joining NATO, or recognizing reality and trying to get better relations with Russia. And the more the Georgians look at Ukraine and what's happening in Ukraine, the more they are nervous about the concept of opening up a second front, etc., which the West clearly wants. And then the other thing is the Georgians are in a difficult situation. Two Georgian regions, Abkhazia and South Ossetia, are not part of Georgia right now. I mean, the Georgians consider them part of Georgia, but the Abkhazians have broken away, consider themselves independent. The South Ossetians the same way. Russia hasn't recognized either one of them yet, but Georgia doesn't have control over these, and Georgia wants them back. They are part of Georgia, and the reality is, if Georgia tacks towards the European Union, they're going to lose these two territories. Straight up lose them. They're gone forever. They'll never get them back. So, there's wiser heads right now are trying to prevail in Georgia to say, if we want these territories back, we need to make good with Russia and then hopefully have Russia help us make good with the Abkhazians and the South Ossetians so that some sort of an arrangement can be made that that brings them back into the fold, whether it'll be through, some sort of federation, with the extensive autonomy. That's not me to say, but that's where we're at right now. We've got this very delicate political wrestling match taking place. The United States, unfortunately, doesn't respect the sovereignty of Georgia, and we are putting our thumb on the scale in favor of the, of the people that are pro-EU, pro-NATO. We're threatening to sanction Georgia. Here we are. Yay, America. We're the best friends anybody ever had. So, Georgia's acting in their own sovereign interest. We claim to be their best friend, but as soon as Georgia does something that's good for Georgia, we threaten to sanction them. And it may backfire this time, but we'll see. It's a very delicate situation right now. A lot of pressure being placed on Georgia to open up a second front against Russia by creating a conflict or a crisis with Abkhazia or South Ossetia. It would be suicidal for Georgia to do this. They don't have a military capable of sustained combat against an army like Russia, even though the Russians are distracted in terms of resources being dedicated to the special military operation against Ukraine. Believe me, there's enough Russian resources to come in and make short work of Georgia. And the Georgians know this. The smart Georgians know this. So, plus, it's just not in their interests. I always tell people, just take a look at what's the distance between Georgia and Russia? And the answer is, they're neighbors. They border each other. How far does an American have to travel to get to Georgia? Pretty long way. So if you're a Georgian, do you want to have good relations with your neighbor or the person that's way, way over there? And the answer should be with your neighbor, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Arena in Niskayuna, New York. You live in New York. Are you familiar with Niskayuna? I've never heard of it.
I'm very familiar with Niskayuna. It's when you leave Albany heading due west, you get into Schenectady County, and before you get to Schenectady, you hit the little town of Niskayuna. They have a blended fire department. Half of it is full-time career firefighters, and the other half are volunteer firefighters. And I don't know how they make that work, but yep, I'm familiar with Niskayuna.
Okay. You mentioned that Prigozhin had contacts with Ukrainian